Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our post-match show of Fulham's 1-0 loss to Manchester United once again at Craven Cottage. 3 seasons in a row, Tony. Very disappointing, and we'll be talking about this during the episode. I'm extremely disappointed. A day later, you were there, and we're going to go through this in probably the next 45 minutes to the hour. If you are watching live, feel free to share a comment on the match. Definitely want your comments. If you have not yet, please do subscribe on the Cottage Talk YouTube channel. Would certainly appreciate that. And as always, please do check out the Cottage Talk Patreon page. Okay, my friend, you and I talked about this after the match. I was extremely confident going into this. Okay, not gonna lie. I really thought Fulham had not just a really good chance, but I expected them to win this match. And I got reminded that I'm a Fulham supporter, that this is what happens. And it's unfortunate because I see teams around us that I think are kind of on our level. Well, maybe they're above us because they're getting these victories like a Bournemouth. Even though Nottingham Forest got destroyed by Bournemouth, they're still playing very well. This is a tight match, Tony, and you needed a moment of magic. We didn't get that, maybe a couple moments of magic, and we got a massive sucker punch from a deflected goal. But anyways, regardless of all that, I want your opening thoughts. I'm still very agitated.
Yeah, look, it's unfortunately in Fulham's DNA at the moment. We thought we might have turned a corner, but quite simply, we haven't. And the problem with the results that we've had, Russ, being unbeaten in those run of games, and it kind of flatters to deceive a little bit. Manchester United have been particularly poor. We know that. All right, they scraped to win against Rangers in midweek in the Europe. But then they got beaten by Brighton. I watched that game and I was thinking to myself, if Fulham play anywhere near their levels, they should do pretty much a similar thing. And this is a team that hasn't kept a clean sheet for like 14 games, Russ.
Yep.
And they come to Craven Cottage. I have to say, the way that the club is running, the way that the people at the top are running the club at the moment is a disgrace. I have to say that before we move on.
Okay.
The amount of people sitting around me with these half scarves, Man U scarves, Fulham scarf, it's an absolute disgrace what's going on, right? But put that aside. The atmosphere last night started off, they had this wonderful, amazing, light show or firework, whatever you want to call it. Brilliant. Razamadaz, fantastic, great, right? Then we start the game, and in typical Fulham fashion, we get on top, we pass the ball, we're good in possession, we move it from left to right, but there's no cutting edge, Russ. There's no cutting edge. There's nothing.
No.
And so another 45 minutes of football, and you're analysing it, and you're thinking, right, what do I take out of that 45 minutes? Where do I go with that? Apart from Iwobi's effort from about 30 yards, that was it. There was nothing else. And Raul tried to bend it in, from 20 yards and went flying over the bar. It was another nothing half of football where, you can sit there and Marco Silva can say, oh, we did this and we did that. But football is about scoring goals. It's about penetrating the defence, getting in behind teams and scoring goals. And we could have been playing till next Saturday and we would not have scored a goal.
Right. And I'm there with you. It's funny because I was thinking about this, Tony. The one thing that really stands out to me, it's actually something that we had a discussion with Mickey Adams about, and it reigns true. And I'm going to share my thoughts on this. So I focus a lot on the manager. I focus a lot on Marco. We're going to talk about who won the coaching battle, right? Marco had the blueprint to how to win this match. He knew how they were going to play. I'm sure the team was prepared to how Manchester United were going to play. Manchester United were 10 strangers out there. There was no fluidity, Fulham had all the ball. They were controlling the game. But I remember something that Mickey Adams said. He said one thing that he's learned over his coaching career, that it's about the players. And Marco might have put his team in position to succeed, but the players simply did not get it done, Tony. They did not get this done. And I'm going to make the argument right now, and I know many supporters are going to agree with me. I know you're going to agree with me, that I didn't want to go down this road because I happen to like Rodrigo Muniz. I happen to like Raul. You mentioned Raul having an opportunity. How about Rodrigo Muniz having an opportunity? The issue that I have right now is that both of these players are good strikers. Fulham do not have, at this point, an elite striker. They have never been able or haven't taken the place of Mitrovic. So I'll ask you this, and I asked you before we went live. The two opportunities that we just talked about, the one from Raul, especially the one from Rodrigo, especially that one, I think Mitrovic scores that goal. When these matches are this tight, where they're not creating a hell of a lot, who can make something out of nothing? And that was Mitrovic. And I hate to say it, Tony, we are missing that player. I didn't want to keep banging that drum. The transfer window is about to close, and I've not seen Fulham linked to any strikers. And I just think it's horrible that we're going to probably go with the status quo for the rest of the season, where, I hate to say it, there's a gaping hole, and it's with the striker position. Even though these two guys are doing the best that they can, they're going to score goals. But when you're in a match like this, you need that clinical striker. They don't have it, Tony. That's the difference.
100%, Russell. And that's why Fulham are currently sitting 10th in the Premier League. And that's why clubs like Bournemouth are sitting 7th, Newcastle are sitting 5th, and Nottingham Forest are sitting 3rd. The reason why those clubs are pushing on and moving on is because they have a goal scorer in their side that are clinical at the clinical moments when they need to put the ball in the back of the net. Chris Woods, if you take him out of that Forest team, they will be where we are.
That's
Isak,
right.
At Newcastle, you take him out, Newcastle will be where we are. Kluivert, you take him out of Bournemouth, we will, and that is the difference. You're right. Raul and Muniz are okay. They're okay. They're good players. They're players that you want to bring off the bench with 20 minutes to go, half an hour to go, to just freshen it up, to give you a little bit of a run out. They are not they should not be your starters every single week in the Premier League, because they are not clinical enough. They are not consistent enough. And that is the reason why, one of the reasons, it's not the reason, it's one of the reasons why we are where we are.
Right. And like I said, there are other reasons. You talked about not being able to have like a solid defense. We've talked about it, not enough clean sheets. You're totally right about that. So they kind of go hand in hand. But I look back at this, and I didn't want to be one to admit how much Fulham miss a Mitrovic, especially put him on this team. And I'm just telling you, I think we're much higher up the table. Maybe we are where Nottingham Forest is. Maybe that is the difference. But I think I do agree with you that we need a much tighter defense to go along with that, so that it's not just the goals.
But also, Russ, yesterday, that first half, a lot of the reason why we couldn't get any build-up play in their final third is because our distribution out the back yesterday, particularly Anthony Robinson and Anderson, was really poor. Now, I got slated by a number of Fulham fans last night for putting out about Anthony Robinson, right? People have got to start waking up, right, and give their little heads a wobble. Not disputing that Anthony Robinson is not a good footballer, a good athlete. He's had a very good season up to, a few weeks ago. He's been very consistent. Okay, he's been good. However, there are areas of his game that are not good enough. And they are contributing to a lot of things that are going wrong in this team. And if fans don't want to acknowledge that, then more fool them. But I'm telling you now, if someone comes in for 100 million quid for Anthony Robinson, I'm selling him tomorrow. I'm selling him. Yes, he'll be a miss going forward in certain situations in certain, points of the season.
Right.
But do me a favour. This geezer cannot cross a ball for love nor money, right? He is so wasteful at times. Yes, he's had 9 assists, but he's also had over 100 crosses that have flown out or not gone or not beaten the first man. So it's all about balance.
Right. And I'm going to share this from Chris Goodwin, going back to our discussion on the goal scorer. And he's a Liverpool supporter because Mitro would always get 15 goals a season minimum. He would bully defenders. That has never been replaced. Chris is right. Tony, I'm sure you agree with all that.
Absolutely. But Mitro played to his strengths, Russ. Mitro wasn't a runner, right? He wasn't one of those players that's going to do doggies and you get him in the box, Mickey talked about it the other day about getting your striker in the box.
Right.
When he was in that 18-yard box, if you put balls in there, he was going to attack it. And like Chris has just said there, bully defenders, and he wanted to win that ball and he wanted to score. Now, I'm not saying that Muniz and Morel don't want to score, but they are not those players. And we're not getting the ball to them in areas where they can hurt the opposition defenders. Man United had Harry Maguire playing yesterday in their back three.
I know. Right? He was there
Harry
for the taking,
Maguire.
man. He was there for the taking.
We didn't test him once. We didn't put him under pressure once. We didn't run at him once.
No.
That's not good enough.
No, it's not, Tony. And I'm going to share this again, talking about Jedi's. David Perry shares, agree on Robinson's game. I don't believe he sees big minutes at a top 6 club. And,
right, David.
And I tend to agree with him. And listen, I will give him praise when he deserves it. I said that he's really improved his crossing. I'm only analyzing what I watched yesterday and what you watched at Craven Cottage. I don't know. And I know that it was windy, but I'm not using that as an excuse. Some of those crosses were horrible. And I mean horrible. And they got themselves in these great situations. And I'm holding my head after some of those crosses, Tony. And it reminded me of some of the crosses I've seen in the past. We haven't seen that much of those terrible crosses from him lately. They just showed up in the worst possible time in this match.
We've been really complimentary of Robinson this season.
We have
rightly so. And rightly so, because his performances have been, good at times. But you can't get away from the fact, Russell, and, whether fans want to admit it or not, you cannot get away from the fact that as a collective, and he is a part of that defensive collective, right? His defending at times is woeful. And the reason why he gets away with so much is because he's got unbelievable recovery skills. Yeah, he's got the pace and the recovery to get back in and, make a bad pass. Look, okay, I've managed to get myself out of trouble there. He gets himself out of trouble because of those attributes that he has. But honestly, if he was that good, Russell, why haven't one of these big so-called big clubs come in and made an offer yet? Why haven't they? And there's a reason why they haven't. Because they see the same things. Because defensively, he's got weaknesses and deficiencies. Great going forward if you play that way. Liverpool don't play that way with their fullbacks bombing on. They don't play that way.
No.
Arsenal don't play that way. So he would be ineffective in a side like that because, that's what he's good at. But he cannot, when you get into those areas and the areas that he gets into, like yesterday, the amount of times he gave the ball away needlessly, honestly, it puts us under pressure because what we then have to do as a team is go and win that ball back. Yeah. And that's not easy. That's putting a lot of pressure on Lukic, a lot of pressure on Berger, and they can't continue to carry on winning balls and winning possession all the time.
I agree, Tony. And let's move on. I want to share this comment, and it's going to talk a little bit about Emile Smith-Rowe because I know Steve has his feelings about Emile Smith-Rowe, but also talks a little bit about Marco Silva. So I want to get your thoughts. When your record signing costs $32 million, what does that say about FFC? Has Silva taken this side as far as it will go? Silva needs to look at also. So what are your thoughts? We've talked a little bit about this. I actually had a Fulham supporter reach out to me and mention Silva because what if we end up being where we are? Does Silva stick around? Or is this the best that we can expect under Marco Silva? And I think it's fair to ask the question, Tony. What are your thoughts about what Steve just
I
shared?
think Steve raises a very, very, very good point, and it's a big talking point, to be honest with you. Listen, there's no question Smith Rowe is underperforming.
Yep.
Absolutely 100%. I'm not sure why. I mean, I've got my own, thoughts about that, and we have spoken about it. And there is a big question about, at the moment, with the resources that he's got, has Marco Silva taken this group of players as far as he can? Has he got a plan B, Russell? Has he got a way of mixing it up to change things? Is he sitting down with Tony Khan now saying, listen, I need to get a striker at this football club. I need to improve the quality that we've got. These are all questions that we don't have the answers to.
No.
But when your £32 million signing is not performing to the level that you need him to perform at, there's always going to be scrutiny and pressure.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Smith Rowe. I've been,
I know,
backing him, and I think we need to be patient. But that patience is running thin, and unfortunately, he divides opinion now with the Fulham faithful and the Fulham fans.
Right.
Real Fulham fans will look at it and go, do you know what? Yesterday, he was okay, Russell. He was all right.
He was fine. He was okay. I think okay is right.
Want him to be that player that steps up and gives you that bit of magic to change the game.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. He's not doing that at the moment.
I think he's playing afraid, Tony. There was one opportunity that he had that he passed it off, and I'm thinking, why don't you just take it right into the box? And I'm thinking he's not playing like a playing.
Is he lacking confidence? Yes. Is he lacking confidence?
Absolutely. That's my opinion is that he is lacking that confidence to do what he can do. And I think it's affecting his game. It's affecting Fulham because he's playing scared. What I'm seeing, instead of, like I said, the best example was that opportunity. He passed it off, and I'm thinking, you should be taking that yourself, like he did against Crystal Palace. It was a similar situation that you just go and you run with it, and instead he passed it off. And I'm thinking, that's a player that's not confident in his own abilities right now.
The question should be, why? Why is he not confident? What is it that's affecting him? Why isn't he able to show, the glimpses or the moments that he had at Arsenal? And we've talked about it. We've discussed it. Is it because he's not playing with the players that he had at Arsenal? Is it because the lack of, maybe he hasn't got that quality? He hasn't got that assurance behind him that he had when he was there? Is it the injury that he suffered is just, knocked a yard out of him, and he's just never going to recover to be that player again? But these are questions that need to be answered, Russ. They need to be.
No, I agree. And listen, there's one thing from our interview with Mickey Adams that I want to bring to the table is that Mickey also said to you and me to basically, I'm paraphrasing, give the kid a chance, let him grow. He did say that we have to be patient with him because he sees the ability to. But it's difficult when you have paid all this money and you're not getting those magic moments that Fulham desperately need right now. But I think that there are factors that go along with it. I'm not giving him a pass, Tony. I'm just saying let's weigh everything because I truly believe next season will be that season for him. But right now he's lacking confidence, in my opinion. It's affecting him. It's affecting the team. So for Steve Reynolds to come out and say this, he has a right to, because this is what we're seeing. If we're going to criticize Jedi, we certainly have to criticize Emile Smith Rowe, because
it's a two-way thing, Russ.
Yeah,
it's a two-way thing moving forward from this point. He has to work harder at training to try and lift his levels. And Marco Silva, as the manager, needs to get the best out of him or find a way to get the best out of him.
Right. No, I totally agree, my friend. All right, let's move on from our opening thoughts and let's get to the good, the bad, and who won the coaching battle. This should be interesting. Let's start with the positives that came out of this, the good. And I'm going to put in the good two players that actually were my keys to victory, one of them, and that was Berge and Lukic. Tony, I think these guys are doing everything that they can for the team. I think they were both players that I put in the good category. Would you agree with me on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say the good was the firework display before the game and the light show, because that was the only bloody decent thing that really happened all night, to be honest with you. But no, all joking aside, I thought first half Lukic particularly was outstanding. Both, him and Berger really they put a shift in. They protected our back four brilliantly. They broke up their play. I thought the referee, I don't know what he was doing. He must have forgotten his cards and left them in the dressing room, because there were a couple of nasty
He was
challenges.
terrible. Yeah.
I mean, but look, at the end of the day, as I said, with all that dominance and all that possession in first half, we didn't do anything with it.
No.
And that was the disappointing thing.
Right. And I think that's all that we're going to talk about, the good, because the bad, I'm going to lead us off by just painting the picture to what you're already talking about, Tony. We got ourselves in all these good situations in the first half. I want to focus a lot on the first half, because I think that's where this match was actually lost, because there was an opportunity here to get a goal or two in the first half, and Fulham did not do enough to get even one goal. But they get themselves into all these good positions. I'm listening to the announcers talk about and actually show at halftime the advantage Fulham had on that left-hand side. The Manchester United players were nowhere to be found, Tony. They had all kinds of room. Anthony Robinson and Alex Iwobi had all kinds of space. They had all kinds of space. The problem is they did not really take enough advantage of it. You had the opportunities from Iwobi, but they were from distance. I think when I really look back at it, we've already talked about it, it was the woeful crossing that I think let Fulham down in that first half. Like we said, not just Robinson, but also the passes from Anderson were just horrific too. But when you look at the crossing coming from Jedi, I literally, as I was watching it with a coworker who's a Manchester United supporter, he looked at me and said, "Oh my Lord, that is bad." And we're both fans of the U.S. men's national team, so we're kind of used to the Jekyll and Hyde of Jedi. But we saw the Hyde version in this match.
What happened? Whatever happened to being direct, Russ? You've got to look at United in recent weeks and their results and the players they've had. They've got in my opinion, one of the worst goalkeepers in the league. Right? He's got a mistake in him all day long. Steve's absolutely right there. You got Harry Maguire, who's, to be honest with you, was finished 2 years ago. He's good in the air, but he's got no pace whatsoever. Also an accident waiting to happen. And there were times yesterday when we broke through the channels and broke through the lines and had these transitions, and we were getting into areas. Iwobi was guilty of it. Harry Wilson was guilty of it, where they could have drive at the defence, get at players, get a shot off. There was one point where Iwobi was clean through, and then he played a 20-yard diagonal pass to the left to Robinson.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? Shoot. Just pull the trigger. And this is the problem. And I don't know whether it's been drilled into them so much now that they've got to play, get it out wide, drive the ball into the box and then score from it. But we've got to start shooting, Russ. We've got to start getting shots off. And to have two half efforts in the first half in 45 minutes is just ridiculous. It's just not good enough, especially with the players that we, so-called players that we've got in our side. It's got to be better.
Absolutely, Tony. So I'm focusing on, like I said, what happened in the first half. Where else do you want to go with the bad here?
Well, let's talk about Fulham giving tickets to every Tom, Dick and Harry that wanted to come to the game. That was bad. Right? Let's talk about the half-scarf muppets in our end of the half wearing his... That's bad, right? It's bad, Russ. It's really bad. Let's talk about the lack of atmosphere. That was shocking. That was terrible. It's basically, this is what I'm saying. Real Fulham fans and supporters that love the club are seeing this football club being turned into a show, right? Being turned into a gimmick.
It's an event.
Exactly. And it's not an event for us.
No.
It's not an event for us. It's not. And it never has been. And it never will be. And what they're going to do is they're going to lose loyal fans, loyal supporters, and end up what you saw yesterday, which was, honestly, I'm sitting there thinking, what has this place become? What has this place become? If it wasn't for the Hammersmith faithful in H5 and H6 who are trying to get vocal and trying to, all you could hear was the Man U fans. That was it.
Oh, I heard them very loud, Tony. And this goes back to what do the cons want? I want to talk about the atmosphere because I'm sharing just some comments. I agree with all this. I'm not there, right? But I've been one that has experienced situations like this with my own teams here. And here in the Boston area, we don't like all that other stuff because we focus on the actual play. We don't care about the fireworks. We don't give a rat's ass about any of that. So I don't want every match to be an event. I want it to be a match. And unfortunately, it's turned into this circus. And I understand that it's not just Fulham doing this, it's across the Premier League. And they're all doing this. And I think that they're losing what it's all about. It's about the supporters going there, enjoying themselves, and trying to see if their team is going to win the match. That's what it's about. And it's about atmosphere. You are actually killing the atmosphere with the way that they price the tickets when you have all the Manchester United supporters. And like you said, this circus before the match and during the match and all that crap. The Fulham supporters, I'll guarantee it, I'm not there, but probably will say, we don't need any of that. We just want to win. We just want to win. And that to me is what it's about. When you put more into what is going around the match than into the match, that's a problem for me, Tony.
I'll tell you what, Russ, right? Keep your flamethrowers, right? Keep the lights off for an extra half an hour and bring the ticket prices down for 20 quid per person. And that way everyone will be happy. You know, look, without being facetious, I think ultimately at the moment, people are disgruntled because there's no balance at the moment, right? The team's doing okay, Russell. It's doing all right. You know, it is where I thought it was going to be. Yeah. Between 10th and 14th. That is where we will finish this season. And that's where I said right at the beginning of the season, before Fulham kicked a ball, that is where we'll be. We're doing all right. We're not going to get relegated. We're not going to Europe. We're going to be sitting bang smack in the middle. But at what point do Fulham and the Khans and anyone else involved with the football want to make a serious decision about us becoming a serious football team in this Premier League? When is that decision going to be made? And when are the supporters going to be looked after properly and be, you know, respected for what they give? And someone made a point before about the atmosphere is killing the team. He's absolutely right. Well, she's absolutely right. It is killing the team. You know, you've got to get behind the players. They've got to feel wanted. They've got to feel alive. And that's not happening. No. And so it's a big problem.
Okay, my friend. And I think that's where we'll keep the bad. I mean, there's obviously a lot of bad, and we'll go through the match coming up next. But before we do that, before we talk about the starting 11, let's talk about who won the coaching battle. This is interesting because, like I said, I look at it a little bit differently after our conversation, Tony, with Mickey. And I would recommend anyone, any Fulham supporter, please watch or listen to this because it was enlightening for me. And I think it's probably will be fantastic for every single Fulham supporter to hear what Mickey Adams had to share. It wasn't just about the history. He also talked about the current team, which I found very enlightening, as I just said. But the one thing that stands out to me, as we have already talked about, is for all that I put the focus on, Marco has to put the players in the position to succeed, Tony. I actually think he did that. But the players have to execute it. So I'm going to ask you, between him and Amaran, who did not change anything, he really didn't do anything different. He threw out his team. They do what they do. Marco had the blueprint. So who won the coaching battle? Or did it even matter in this one?
Amaran.
Okay.
Amaran won the battle because he's come away from Craven Cottage with a clean sheet and 3 points. Right, and you've got to remember, well, let's go back to when the 19th of December, when Manchester United lost to Tottenham 4-3 in the quarterfinals of the Cup. Bournemouth smashed them 3-0 at Old Trafford. Yep. Wolverhampton Wanderers beat them 2-0. Yeah, Newcastle beat them 2-0. And so on and so forth. We can go on and on and on. Right, they had a result against Southampton in between that. Brighton beat them 3-1. They come to Craven Cottage, and in true typical Fulham style, They don't take the game by the scruff of the neck. They're not clinical. They're not ruthless. They're too nice. And Man United steal 3 points at the end. And that's it. And the problem is it's all getting a little bit too repetitive with Silva now. It's all becoming far too repetitive. I don't see a plan B. And Steve Reynolds is absolutely spot on there. What is his plan B? What is his change in formation? What is his change in shape? Why doesn't he throw 2 forwards on sometimes and change it up a little bit? Why does he stick with this constant? And that has to change, Russell. It has to. He's got to be brave as well. We're asking the players to be brave.
I've said this before.
When is he going to be brave? When is he going to be brave?
You and I have said that. I've said this to you. When is he going to be brave?
When? When's he going to throw Josh King in and give him a game? He might as well do it now. We've got nothing to play for other than the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So the league's got. Look, we're going to finish between 10th and 14th. Throw Josh King in now. Give him a run of games. Give him 10 games.
Yeah.
Give him 12 games till the end of the season. Let him play. When's he going to be brave?
I agree with you. What's frustrating about this is that there's an opportunity here to get to Europe, or there was, okay? I don't see it as something that is possible at this point. I've thrown that out, okay? I know where they're going to be because this is who they are. The question is, why are they? Why do Fulham, the Cons, feel that they want to be Crystal Palace, West Ham? Why would I want to be them? Why? Because I want to be in the Premier League for another 10 years. That would be nice.
Because Russell, Tony Khan is only interested in entertainment. He only cares about entertaining. That's it. He doesn't care about the football. Because if he did, you'd start to see something tangible.
Yeah. I'm going to share this. Chris, I understand what you're saying. Chris says it could be worse, Tony. You could be a Spurs fan. I agree with that.
God forbid.
And I wouldn't want that on anyone, Chris. I think you would agree with me on that. But we're Fulham supporters. And listen, you support Liverpool. You know where you're going to be. We want to be in Europe. I don't think it's crazy to want to be in Europe. I've said this since I became a Fulham supporter when everyone said, no, Russ, this is who we are. And I'm going to ask the question, why? Why do we have to accept mid-table mediocrity? I hate that, Tony.
Listen, it's about stepping stones. We've stepped a few stones. We've now got,
right.
It's not that we're comfortable, but we're at a place now where everything's settled. We've become a little bit more established. And now let's take the next step. Otherwise, what is the point of just being, like you say, a Crystal Palace every season? Or, and just sitting in mediocrity every season. You know what? I'd rather go back to the Championship, Russ. I'd rather go back to the Championship.
I enjoyed the Championship.
That league,
I enjoyed it.
At least then, you're playing for a playoff place, or you're going to.
That's right.
Because what's the point? We want to push on to Europe. So in order to do that, the investment, the planning, it has to come.
And that's why this match really epitomizes what they're missing. That's why we're talking about this. You get yourself into all these good positions, right? But you're missing that lethal striker. You're missing a defense that needs to be a little bit more solid, that combination, but there needs to be investment. And I'm looking at the end of the transfer window, and I got to tell you, I've not seen him, as I said at the beginning of the show. Have you seen any links to any striker anywhere? I'm going to tell you, I've not seen one.
It's the 27th of January, Russ.
I know.
Where are they going to find 3 players now between now and the Friday?
They need 3 players. We'll be lucky if we get one.
We're going to end up with, I'm telling you what we're going to end up with, a couple of loans. That's what's coming.
Yeah.
That's what's coming.
Oh, I guess Tony and I are a little bit frustrated. I think we have a right to be. All right, Tony, before we break down the match, let's talk about the starting 11. It was the starting 11 from the last match. It's what I expected. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, you can't change in my opinion, it was the right decision. You can't change your winning side. Yep. It's absolutely spot on. You've just beaten Leicester. The players should be buzzing, playing United at home, big game. There was nothing to change, absolutely spot on.
Okay, very good. All right, coming up next, Tony and I break down both halves, and we'll end with man of the match. Okay, Tony, let's get to it. So I'll just tell you a little bit of my thoughts on the first half, then you can share yours. So I'm watching this, and I'm going to share a little story that goes along with this. So I'm watching with a coworker at my house, first time he's come over, and the match was delayed on USA Network because there was a college basketball game on. So for the first 15 minutes, I kid you not, we had to watch it on the NBC app on his phone. So I'm next to my coworker looking at this for like 15 minutes. So that's how the first half began for me. But then as we got into the half, I'm seeing Fulham getting themselves in some very good situations. I saw a Manchester United team that looked disjointed, didn't look like they were going to score a goal, nothing. They were offering next to nothing. That's what was frustrating here. I could see the advantages Fulham were having, but I also saw the flaws during this first half, as we're talking about, getting themselves into good areas, but not doing anything with it. No cutting edge, toothless. That's what the first half showed me, Tony, is a toothless attack that just let a really good opportunity go to waste. That first half, Fulham should have been up 1 or 2-0. They did not do enough, and they got what they deserved. Nothing.
Absolutely. Look, Russ, if you look at the stats, and I'm not always a big fan of stats, but if you want to see daylight robbery or understand how bad Manchester United were yesterday, right? They had a total of 4 shots in 90 minutes. Do you know how many of those 4 shots were on target? One. Right? Do you know how many corners they had yesterday, Russell?
0, right?
0. And they've won the game 1-0 and they've taken all 3 points. And that will tell you everything you need to know about Fulham's lack of clinicalness in the final third against Manchester United yesterday. Yeah. And it's been a problem all season. I don't care about the 8 games unbeaten run. I don't care about the fact that we beat Chelsea and, blah, 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 blah. The bottom line is, and I said to you, what will hurt us this season? Right at the beginning of the season, before we kicked the ball, I said, not buying a clinical centre forward will come back to hurt us this season.
You were right.
And there you go.
You're right.
Hurt us. And it continues to hurt us. And it will continue to hurt us until we get one in. And if we don't get one in, it will continue to hurt us for the next 12, 13, 14 games, whatever we've got left. And then we'll all be sitting here at the end of the season speaking about the same thing.
I want to just share this because your frustration with the striker goes along with what I'm going to share. And I think Fulham supporters should keep this in the back of their mind. Not that he would have made this tremendous difference this season, but they sold Jay Stansfield. Okay, they sold him. They got a decent return for him. They've not invested that money because it happened at the end of the window. I'm telling you right now, they should be at least using that money and other money to bring in a striker. How could you not bring in a striker when you just pocket that money and you do nothing with it in January? Don't give me that you're going to do it over the summer. Think about the team that you have. Think about the weaknesses that you have and take care of it. Find a solution. You've got only a few days to go. And I'm telling you, if they don't bring in a striker, I'm going to point to that Jay Stansfield money. Not that it's a tremendous amount of money, but it's the fact that they did nothing with it, Tony, that will really irritate me.
Yeah, look, it's a known fact that probably every Premier League club in the country is looking for a centre forward. Arsenal are looking for one. Tottenham are looking for one. Well, they bought one, but he hasn't really turned up yet. But listen, this is what they've got scouts for, Russell. Right? This is why they pay so much money for these scouts to go out and scout Europe and go over, because they need to find one. I'll tell you what, there's a decent centre forward playing in Portugal right now, banging in goals left, right and centre for Sporting Lisbon. Right? We should have bought him a season and a half ago when he was at Coventry. There are strikers out there. Why are we not active? Why are we not going out there? Don't tell me that we just settled on Muniz and Raul. I can't believe that, Russ. Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. But, going back to our first half analysis, everything that we tried yesterday was forced. From the back, It was forced. Anderson trying to force 30-yard passes, straight balls into players. Raul failing to hold the ball, secure it. It was coming back at us. Then Robinson playing balls down the channels, getting cut out. The amount of turnover yesterday in that first half was really poor.
Yeah.
And the fact that we only mustered 2 efforts on goal, if you want to even call them efforts on goal, shows just, as you say, toothless in the final third.
Yeah.
Absolutely toothless.
It was a terrible first half. Let's just call it what it is. The second half, I guess you could say, was even worse, but it just was a bad first half of football. So now we go to the second half, Tony. Let's start with, I thought Fulham did not come out with the same urgency that they showed in the first half, but I've seen this several times, many times. They don't start second halves generally well. They have recently a little bit better, but not in this match. And then you have the injury to Wilson. What's interesting here is I actually think this affected Fulham more than many people think, because he comes off. Yes, Traore comes on, but I think this affected Fulham because then they decided to move Iwobi to the other side. It didn't really work, Tony. So let's talk about Wilson going off injured and basically the domino effect, which wasn't positive.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think Wilson was I think he'd run his race, to be honest, up until the injury. Obviously, I didn't want him to get injured, but personally, I would have taken him off. He wasn't having an effect on the game like you wanted him to. Traore, as you know, always brings you something different. I thought when he came on, actually, he was quite lively. He was quite bright. Again, I don't understand why Marco switched it. Why didn't he just leave Iwobi where he was and then put Traore there? He's got his own reasoning, behind that. Or if after 10 minutes, switch them anyway. Or give them the free license to have a switch up whenever they felt like it.
Right. Have
a little bit of flexibility. But obviously he didn't. Did it affect us too much? Look, we start second half slow. It's been our mantra all season.
I don't get it either. I don't understand.
All season, we don't come out the blocks. We don't take the game by the scruff of the neck, and then we just seem to go through the motions. And as I said, we're waiting for that little spark, that little bit of magic that Smith Rowe hopefully can give you. He didn't give it to us.
No.
That little bit of magic from Rowe, if he can get the ball in the right areas. We didn't get the ball to him in the right areas. So we're going through the motions. And you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, here we go. We've seen this picture a million times before. Man U are going to nick a goal. At some point, they are going to get a chance and they're going to nick a goal.
And that's exactly what happened. And that's going to lead us to talk about this deflected goal. And yes, it was deflected. It was horrible. And
forget the deflection. Let's talk about the build-up, Russ.
Okay. I'll let you talk about the build-up, because the deflection is really just the end part of it. Your thoughts.
Ball's played into the channel. Tell me what Castagne's doing. What is Castagne doing? He's on the wrong side of the player, and then he's sliding on his backside where he should have just stood him up. Don't let him. He's not going anywhere with the ball in that area. If he stays on his feet, he can then defend that situation. But he's gone to ground. The player turns back. He's now out the game. The ball comes out. Berger's clearance is shocking, by the way, because he needs to put his foot through that and bang it down the park. He gives it away. Lukic then's got an opportunity to wipe out Martinez, go through him, take the yellow card. And I think the reason why he didn't go for him is because he's on a yellow. If he gets another yellow, he misses 2 games. So he flimsily puts his foot out, and then Martez strikes it. It hits Lukic, and then Leno is caught off, completely wrong-footed or whatever, in the wrong position, because he's expecting the ball to go somewhere else. Right. And then it loops in, and it's just an absolute Jarzy goal. Oh. But the build-up is just shocking. 3 opportunities, and we don't deal with it.
Okay, I asked you to watch this when I talked to you last night. Do you think Leno could have done anything with that, or do you not blame him?
I think he could have been a little bit better positioned, Russ, to be honest with you. But I think the deflection's done him. That's what I think. The deflection's caught. I think he's too far off his line anyway, to be honest.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
I do. But, Leno is just a little cog in the wheel. Let's talk about what Lukic should have done. Let's talk about what Berger should have done. Let's talk about what Castagne. So we can take it back 3 phases. And Fulham could have defended that goal a lot better in all three instances,
Right.
but we didn't.
No, good point there, Tony. All right. Let's move on. Now, what's interesting here, and again, I'm just telling you the commentary I heard, but I also could see with my eyes. This happens all the time, Tony. Now, Manchester United are going to sit back, put everyone behind the ball, and Fulham are going to come alive. And that's exactly what happened here. Why did it have to take this situation for Fulham to come alive? The announcers kept saying it over and over in the broadcast I was watching. That was what was frustrating, because all of a sudden they showed this urgency that I hadn't seen before this.
Because the fans were getting tetchy. The fans were getting frustrated. You could feel the tension. You know, it went, as soon as United scored, the place went flatter than flat. I mean, it was flat, but it went absolutely deathly silent. Yeah. You could hear everything United fans were singing in their end. It went definitely, but they needed a reaction. So of course, the manager wants a reaction. Suddenly now, you know, he's got Thomas Kearney on, he's got Pereira on, he's got to, you know, it's the same old, you know, thing. Go a goal down. Okay, what can I do to change it? I know, get our so-called flair players on now that maybe they can change something. And now we've got to get a little bit of impetus into us, but it's too late. That ship has sailed. The horse is bolted. You're chasing the game now. Of course, man, you're going to sit behind the ball now, behind the game now,
Yep.
and come and break us down. Come and break us down. How are we going to break them down?
I don't know, man. That's
couldn't
what was
break
so
them down
frustrating.
for you know, before they scored. We couldn't break them down for 78 minutes.
I know. That's what's frustrating, Tony. And let's now move on to Fulham almost getting the equalizer. And I actually was sent a great video from Emilio, who got this from the Johnny Haynes stand. Really great view of this. You actually probably got an even better view of this. And I'm watching live, and I'm thinking, again, we can criticize the corners and the deliveries from Pereira, and he deserves it. But this one was decent, and this is a good header from Anderson. I thought this was a goal, Tony. What were you thinking when you saw that? Did you think, you must have thought it was a goal too, because it was very close?
Yeah, look, it's one of those, isn't it? It's unlucky. Yeah, Pereira did put in a decent delivery for that corner, but let's say his first corner was absolutely horrendous, right? So
Right.
He's put one bad one in, one decent one in. Okay, we'll give it. Look, Anderson got across. You know, it's a good header, and it's just unfortunate. Look, the defender was on the line.
Yeah, the kid did a good job. The kid,
he did
yeah.
it, you know, positioned well. And it was unlucky. It was just unlucky. It was one of those moments. Yeah. But then, you know, you knew from that moment,
it was over.
That it wasn't going to be Fulham's night from that.
Yeah,
from that moment.
When that happened, you knew it was over. And then, of course, the match shortly afterwards ends 1-0 in a very disappointing loss, Tony. And I still have this bad taste in my mouth with it, but it's not like this hasn't happened before. It's happened many times, but every time that I think it's going to change, you know, it's like that insanity. Every time you think it's going to be different, it's, you know, what am I thinking, right? I'm being positive going into this. I must be insane to think that things are going to change, because they continue to do the things that cost them, and they did here. And it's difficult because that Manchester United team is terrible. It's horrible. And they were there for the taking, and we walk away with nothing. Again, like last season, like the season before at Craven Cottage, they keep on doing this, but at some point you have to look at them, but you also have to look at your own team. Why does it keep happening against this team? I don't have the answer for that, but it is just terrible, Tony. Anyways, before we go, I do want to wrap this up with man of the match. Who would be your man of the match here?
Just to add on to your point before that, Russell.
Go ahead.
You know, Fulham have come a long way, right? We have come a long way. Look, we're sitting here disappointed that we've lost 1-0 to Manchester United, right? That's how far that Fulham Football Club have come. The expectation, and that's also how far Manchester United have fallen. Right. Because, you know, 5 years ago, we'd be sitting here with a 1-0 defeat to United. We'd all be like, well, you know, so we have made big strides. But I think now it's at the point where we don't want to settle for mediocrity anymore. We want to
That's
push
where I'm
on
at.
now. We want to push on. And that's the frustration. So, look, my man of the match yesterday, it's a difficult one because, I think based on his first half performance, for me, Sasha Lukic would get it. Sasha Lukic, basically.
Yeah, I was going to go with Sasha Lukic. I've seen a lot of people talk about Calvin Bassey.
Yeah, listen, he played well yesterday. He did play well, to be fair to him. But again, part of a defence that scored another goal, we've conceded. He's done some really good things in the game as an individual. Yep. He's won some good tackles. He did one bit of magic, which was got the crowd, buzzing. Right. He got away with it. But yeah, listen, I can see why Bassey. But for me, in that first half, just because of his tenacity and the way he put himself, and I can understand why Silva took him off, wants to protect him, didn't want to get him, suspended for the big games coming up.
I got you. Okay, well, that's going to do it for this episode. Tony, before we wrap this up, any final thoughts?
Look, I think that they've got a tough run of games now, Fulham. I think Silva has to take the FA Cup seriously now because that's the last thing that we're playing for now. So hopefully that will be the case. But Newcastle and Forest next, Russ. Two really, really tough games potentially, and we've got to see a reaction. We've got to see something.
I agree, Tony. And listen, this is going to sound strange, especially after what we just watched here. For the basically gut reaction would be they're going to get destroyed to Newcastle United. They're going to fall to Nottingham Forest. This team, the way that they're playing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I wouldn't be shocked if they go to St. James's Park and win. I wouldn't be shocked if they beat Nottingham Forest either. It's just frustrating because I think that this is who they are. They're up and down. It's a roller coaster ride. It always is with Fulham, but it's even more so this year. But I'm glad that you mentioned this because even though I'm being hard on them tonight, I'm disappointed. They have come a long way. But I don't want them to settle for mid-table mediocrity. That's all. That's where I'm going on this. Because there's an opportunity from the get-go to be better than that. This is who they are right now. If you don't strive for better, then you eventually are going to fall back. We saw that at the end of, their situation with the team when they got relegated the first time. We saw that. It was this decline. But it happened fairly quickly. It can happen here. I'm under no illusions that in the rest of my life, Fulham are going to be in the Premier League. I'm sure at some point they're going to get relegated. But before that happens, I'd like to see them go as far as possible, and I'd like to see a true European run. I don't think I'm asking a lot. I'm asking for a little investment to take us over the hump here. There's an opportunity here. If the Cons are listening, please take advantage of it. That's my final thoughts. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. Tony and I will be back with more episodes, but I am going to wrap this up. For Tony Gold, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the TalkSport Fan Network.